Hey friends, we sure do hope you're having a great summer and welcome back to a Performance Matters series. And today we have a remarkable dear friend and probably one of the best 5 moments of need developers, consultants, senior designers I've ever met, Sue Reber. And today Sue will be talking about the important part of optimizing and maintaining a 5 moments of need solution in ways that she's done remarkably over her career. So friends, you're honored to have her here. Sue can't thank you enough. Give a listen, friends. Love to hear what you think. Here we go. Okay, so friends, welcome back to another part of our summer series that is an extension of the summit we had back in spring. And as we talked about each time, we're going into the three areas of challenges of implementing and technology stack and such around a 5 moments of need delivery. And they were, again, design and maintain, of course. Then you have to deliver and optimize. And lastly, track and impact. And today, we are blessed to have a spectacular 5 moments of need consultant and designer, one of my heroes in my life and dear, dear friends, Sue Reber. You want to say hi, Sue?
Hi, glad to be here, Bob.
Sue could do all these, frankly, but we're going to have her go a bit deeper in the world of deliver and optimize because, design and a lot of people who listen and those who have gone through our certificate course, it's one thing to get up to speed and get it. It seems to be a whole other deal to get into the delivery and optimization of this thing, because that's when the reality meets the road of going from a training focus to performance. So we'd love you to go deeper in those areas today. So first, a little bit more on yourself, friend. I know you've been on these a couple of times, and I think this is pertinent because it kind of helps set up what you'll be talking about today, which is the journey of getting here. So how did you come to this place, and why does this matter or work for you as a developer and consultant?
Yeah, so I think for me, this all started back in 1997 with Learn Pro.
Oh my goodness. It did. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we came up with this idea of more problem-based
Mm,
learning, facilitated instructor-led training. At that time, instructor-led training was really pretty much it.
yeah.
There was e-learning too, but I really loved that idea of identifying what are the skills and allowing people to have the
Mm,
support that they needed to practice those skills in a safe place with a facilitator who could walk them through things that they were struggling with.
mm.
So that was the beginning of this journey, and then moved on to intuitive with performance support, and here we are today, now at Apply Synergies, which we
Yeah.
started in what, 2013?
Yeah. Yeah. Just almost going over on our 11th year.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I love the word you use, Sue, skills. That's a big thing right now.
Hmm.
We seem to like to throw jargon around, and sometimes I think it's, a new word for the same thing. But this is a little off script, but let's go there a little bit because I
Hmm.
think it is important. What are skills to you? What does that mean? What was that shift to skills? Because clearly that was, you sort of mentioned that as a
Hmm.
differentiator or different focus of this. And I think we throw skills around candidly, kind of, just like a lot of words, and they tend to mean a lot of different things. As a 5 moments of need designer consultant, what does skill mean to you?
To me, skills are the things that I need to be able to do, combined with the things that I need to know in order to do those
I love
things.
that. I love that definition, Sue. And it sounds like a simple one, but the order is important,
Hmm.
right? The way you
Yep.
emphasize there. And I wrote a blog recently called Empathy is Not a Skill and got a lot of really kind of charged answers. If I may go there, frankly, a lot of them were from people who do like leadership training.
Hmm.
And I didn't mean to ruffle feathers there in the whole thing, but to me, it is. And again, I don't care which side you fall on, as far as how you get down to the definition of empathy, but I do want it to be a doing thing, right? I don't want it to be a knowing thing, is where I try to go in
Yep.
the whole thing, right? And
Yeah.
why is that such a different? Why is it such a big shift for us in L&D?
Because I think that when we start out with objectives. When we're
Mm,
trained, we start out with the objectives and we say, okay, these are the things that we're going to cover in this course. And we don't necessarily, I mean, we started to go there with Mager and performance-based objectives, right?
yep, yep.
But we still have this focus on, in our training, especially explaining how to do things and identifying things and
Mm.
understanding things instead of actually being able to do them. And there's this really cool little fable. Mager starts out all of his books with fables. And one of his books, he has this little fable about this guy who wanted to learn to trip the light fantastic. And he went to school for it and he learned all about it. He learned the history of it and everything about it. And then when he graduated, well, it turns out Trip the Light Fantastic is dancing stage, but he'd never actually danced.
Mm.
So I feel like that's where we have been as instructional designers. We've been living in the I can teach you everything you need to know about this thing, but I'm not.
Yep.
It's sometimes hard to give people that what is it that they actually need to do and to get there.
Yeah, I always say, I got an A in accounting, but I can't do taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in defense of the classroom, we try to do, we
Mm-hmm.
were taught these
Yep.
practice types. And to your point, even in Learn Pro, we had these wonderful scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized, and I think the aha went on for both of us, Sue, that was really just the beginning of the journey.
Yep.
And I think up until then, and still to many, training is the end all,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's enough, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what a wonderful segue in today, because a lot of people know 5 moments, right? They go through our certificate course and they do build a project, which I think is wonderful. But even with that level of applying, they have to go on to their own work. They have to get out of that safe, I love your word, classroom environment, be it virtual or otherwise, within they have hand holding in office hours, and he's one a coach. And then they sit in the middle of their L&D group and they have to move in, deliver, and optimize. They have to do it. So, Sue, and you've made that mental and professional journey yourself. And it's been so inspiring to me to watch you do it, because you are, as you were, if I may say it this way, as dedicated an ID as I ever knew. When I first met you at Logical Operations, so you were fresh out of your academia, and boy, I tell you, you could quote chapter and verse, and the rigor with which you held us to that methodology was really remarkable. So you were, I think, one of the better practitioners of a training first, kind of know and then do first model. And here you sit on the other side of that remarkable journey. So let's dissect this a little bit, Sue, into the two areas. We've got
Mm-hmm.
deliver, we have optimize.
Mm-hmm.
Deliver is different in this mode, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so let's go deeper in deliver. Let's just start with the most pragmatic things, which are the deliverables, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what do you make in this methodology, and what is the blend, if I may go there? We use
Yeah.
blended learning a lot in our business. How is it interpreted, or how does it play out here?
So the first thing I think that's important for IDs and L&D departments to understand and know is that a 5 months of need solution still is training. Training is always going to be part of it. We need that. We need a place to practice in a safe environment. We need to be taught things. We can't learn everything on our own. Be nice if we could,
Mm,
but we can't. And so there is always going to be a place for training. But the other side of that, the flip side of it, is what we haven't done,
mm,
and that is provide the performance support on the job. And so a 5 moments of need solution combines those. And typically we use a digital coach to provide the performance support. And then whatever training is appropriate, it could be e-learning, instructor led, virtual instructor led, self-study, a combination of those. It's really what's most appropriate for what it is that people need to learn how to do and what
mm.
they need to learn, what the knowledge that they need to learn.
So let's go a little bit deeper into that training side. Is it is
Mm-hmm.
it is it like we've always made? Is it everything? Is it how does how does it and I and this could be this there's comfort in knowing that training is still there. There's also a little discomfort in what we how we view what lands there. Can you go a bit deeper
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah. So I think as part of the digital coach, part of the performance support, we have our pyramid,
Hmm.
and learn is part of that pyramid, learning resources. So the training, first of all, is in smaller chunks. I'm not usually now
Yep.
building a 2 week training course like we used to do in the old days
Mm-hmm.
at Logical Operations. I'm more building the content in little pieces, almost like it almost kind of fits SCORM, if you think back to
Yeah, of
SCORM,
course. Yeah.
so that I can pull together the pieces that I need into a training curriculum. I'm going to call it a curriculum.
Mm.
And I'm going to point to the digital coach and use the digital coach in training because that's what I'm providing to people on the job. And so I want to make sure that they leave the training knowing how to use that, knowing where they can find the support that they need.
So it's
Did I
really a
answer that?
teach to fish.
Yeah. Hmm.
So is there a path to that? I mean, if I'm sitting out there listening to this, that sounds like a pretty quantum leap to what I'm used to. When you mentor our clients and when you've taught the course and other things and coached, what is the journey to these deliverables for folks to kind of, get there?
Start where you are
Mm-hmm.
and continuously move forward, right? So, a lot of times we have a lot of training out there and it's going to change, but it's going to change over time. It's not going to change right away. So, I think that you need to not try to boil the ocean, as Khan likes to say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Start right where you are, and you can start out by we start with an RWA, our rapid workflow analysis, and that's where we identify what are the things that people need to do, what do they need to know in order to do it, what are the resources that they need to use as they perform those tasks, and then we can lay that on top of whatever is you already have and start there and then move toward changing the way we think about how we build our training and how we deliver our training and how we deliver the support to our end users.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's funny in our course we emphasize the digital coach in a big way because it's the most missing piece, right? And we really don't even talk about touching their training.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do introduce targeted learning in the course, we
Mm-hmm.
really are like, look, just kind of paddle along.
Yep.
Don't disrupt the apple cart because change management is a part of this, both for the
Mm-hmm.
L&D team, I think, and the company and the organization and the learners, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's do one other thing here. The technology thing. It always rears its ugly head here. Most L&D teams have
Yeah.
a ton of it already.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations have a lot of it when it comes
Mm-hmm.
that really could be qualified as support, maybe not learning, but definitely support assets more than they probably could ever use. What's the technology journey here, and what have you helped guide folks through?
Yeah, so I think that's another crawl, walk, run thing,
Mm.
right? So you're right. Everybody has tons of technology. So let's start with what you already have. How can we change the way that we're creating the content? And then take a look at what technology you already have and see what can we do now just to get this implemented, because a lot of times bringing in another new technology requires the IT department and it's
Sure.
just it can be really overwhelming. So it's it's nice if you can start with whatever you have. You don't have to have performance support software. You don't have to have a digital adoption platform. You don't have to have all of this technology. Maybe it's just layering a workflow map over the top of your SharePoint site
Mm.
to start with, just to get people comfortable and used to what they need, and then you can figure out what you need as you go.
Brilliant. So we kind of got it out there, and then optimization rears its ugly head, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I got to be careful there because it sounds so negative, because it's not necessarily. But I think we run into a different level of maintenance and such than we historically did in training. It was kind of, if I can compare it to software development, frankly, it was kind of a waterfall approach, like in the old days of versions, right? And so a
Mhm.
classroom would sit as it was for a while, even if things kind of changed.
Yeah.
But you kind of upgraded the course in chunks, like big
Hmm.
chunks. This
Yeah.
is very different because it lives in the workflow, you know. So let's start with those that help us, the SMEs. All right,
Hmm.
SMEs. How do we look at that, at those that help us build differently here? What kind of folks are we managing in the process, both in designing and also delivering and optimizing?
Yeah. So 5 moments of need is really a little bit different because it really is about the work that people do. So instead of throwing something over the wall to the training department and saying, we need a training course on this to L&D or whomever, we are pulling in people from the business who are the subject matter experts actually doing the job and working with them to get the content, to identify the content and figure out what they do and how they do their job, and then working from there.
Hmm. And it kind of for me, this broadened my definition of what an SME was. Or,
Mhm.
we had this BME thing. Could you talk a little bit about why we changed the letter a bit?
Well, we do still have the BMEs involved because those are generally the people who know the business matter experts. So we
Yep.
want both of those lenses. And when you come to a rapid workflow analysis, typically you're going to have those subject matter experts and you'll have some business slash process owner experts in there as well. But I think the critical thing is to get the people who actually do the job in the room, because oftentimes they are doing things that nobody knows that they're doing.
Hmm.
And it's really eye-opening
Yeah.
for the L&D team, for their management, even the subject, whoever we're bringing in as the actual people doing the work. Their managers are sometimes surprised. Whoa, you do that?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And
So,
we talked about this in a bunch of these, that often the SMEs aren't doing the job anymore, frankly, right? They've
mhm,
they've been promoted out of it. Sales
mhm,
managers are now helping us build sales training and or sales
yep,
support. And the reality is they haven't sold, in
mhm,
the field in a while. So this moves into a next category, that because these folks sort of help us here, right? It's this governance
mhm,
thing. Maintenance, my gosh, was an issue in the waterfall world,
mhm,
that I mentioned a moment ago. But governance and maintenance in this world is a whole different ballgame, because of the
mhm.
nature of the content. What's the role of folks in that, and how does maintenance look different in this world?
Yeah, so I think with performance support, with training, maintenance was kind of on a cycle, right? And so I build this course. It takes me however long it takes me to build it, depends on what the course is and how big it is. And then at some point, I'm going to go back and review it. I know there are companies that have courses that haven't been touched since like 2019, and they're still training on
Yep.
those courses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with performance support is that there's a feedback mechanism. So, as things change, it's much easier because it's just in smaller pieces. You're not touching an entire huge training course, you're
Mm-hmm.
just addressing a smaller piece of it. So, in some ways, it's easier, and also, like I said, the feedback mechanism. So you can, like, we have one client who has feedback built right into their performance support. They get an email every time somebody finds something that's broken or has a suggestion for something they want to improve or add or anything like that. So you can build that right into your performance support system. And that way, you're able to maintain better and keep things up to date, because the reality is people are using the performance support on the job, whereas the training, they're going to go to the training and they're going to put that training manual or that e-learning course. It's in their transcript. It's on their shelf. It's a physical book. It's hard to find the information that they need when they've got something that's performance support that's right there for them, living on their computer or in the cloud. they are able to much more easily keep things up to date.
Brilliant. And so much of that is ownership of content too. In the old days, we owned everything. We had written the course, we had written the learning, the whole deal. In the true spirit of the pyramid, we're, as we use the word, brokering existing content that may be owned by a content owner in marketing or sales or customers. To your point, their innate desire to keep that current as they always did, frankly, is much more natural for this. And this brings us back to a world you and I stumbled through. And you mentioned SCORM, you mentioned all those days of the dream of single source content and authoring and reusable learning objects, this type of stuff, which, by the way, I don't mean to belittle the effort, but I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. But content management, LCMSs, and knowledge management systems, KMSs, they kind of went away, I think, at least for me, for a number of years. They're back because of this. How is content management taking, and why is it taking on a new life in this discipline?
I think because companies have so much content, and so right now it can be all over the place.
Yep.
And we need a way, and actually performance support can do this because, as you mentioned, we broker out to different information. But we need a way to be able to figure out where all of that is, bring it more centralized. So this allows it to become more centralized. It doesn't necessarily have to all live in the exact same place.
Right.
This is another place where I say, start where you are, right? So literally, I'm going to point to things. They might be in 12 different locations across the company. And to start out with, I'm going to just point to those different places. But as we begin to build the performance support and pull things in, pointing to all of those, doing some kind of an asset analysis and mapping, this is what we have related to each task that we have in context of this performance support, that's going to allow us to figure out what things are people using, first of all. Are those things still valid? And then allow us to point to only the things that we want people to continue to use. They don't need to build all of their own stuff. A lot of times there's so many different assets scattered across the company because people are building their own. Well, there's no information here, so I'm going to just build my own step-by-step instructions, and I'm going to share that with my team.
Yep. So this brings us to tools and templates. We're not, even though we might have moved into this workflow learning thing and enable and such, we still are held accountable to standards, right? And to doing it in an optimal way, defendable way, measurable way, which we kind of cover in the track and impact side of this thing. What tools and templates have you found helpful to this, and why do you think they're so important to do this well?
So are you talking about like Word templates for creating the actual content? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so structured authoring, I think, is a really key piece of this.
Yep.
And so we do set up internally, if you come and work with Apply Synergies, we do set up templates for tasks and for supporting knowledge that you can use to provide some consistency. Every task that you look at, that it's going to have quick steps that start with a verb, and it's going to have the quick steps are going to usually have details underneath them that are coaching comments or sub steps or things like that. So that's what we use to try to standardize what you see. And when you do that, when you implement templates like that and structured authoring, then it doesn't matter where you go in the organization or what performance support, because frequently there's going to be, once you get this into your organization, everybody's going to want it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have lots of different performance support solutions. And if they are consistent, then once somebody knows what to expect, if they move to another job or another department and they're using a different performance support tool, a different performance support system, it's still going to have the same feel to it. You're going to know how to use it.
This also, I think, goes back to our content management issue, Sue, too, in that,
Mhm.
part of doing this well is you use user-generated content. We use that word forever. And I think when you've taught folks to do task writing. I mean, SMEs
Mhm.
aren't really great writers, but we often
Mhm.
have to get their involvement and their help in the creation of these things and maintenance, right? So these
Mhm.
templates become really important for them in guiding them to do exactly what you described.
Yes.
So if I'm an L&D manager out there listening to this, not so much a developer, and I have to bring my team along, I want to sort of dip my toe in this and get started. What would your advice be to them to in their initial steps of bringing this into their team and frankly their organization? Because many of them have to be the champions of this as well when they start changing the deliverables.
So I think for the L&D manager, first of all, pick some people who work for you who are open to new ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion is then expose them to the 5 moments of need and send them, I would send them to our designer certificate course personally is a good way to introduce that.
Sure.
There's all kinds of stuff on the Apply Synergies website that can help you. But I would start by get a small tiger team maybe together that you're going
Yep.
to introduce this to. Get a business person interested. Pick a problem that is something that you feel you can solve for that business stakeholder, and build something small and show it.
Love that.
A walk run.
Love that. Crawl, run again.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of put a bow around this. So this has been spectacular. I presented at an ATD Charlotte chapter recently, and when I got done, a lot of head nodding and smiling and ahas and enthusiasm around the
Mm-hmm.
journey. But to their credit, when I did Q&A at the end, one person, I think it was the elephant in the room, I think it often is, said, Bob, this sounds hard. I mean, this sounds hard. It is very counter in many ways, although there's some similarities clearly. We've talked about in this podcast, but it is a journey. What's your experience about the switch from Eddie to Enable? What's your answer to this is hard? Sounds hard.
So I don't really see it as it doesn't conflict with Addie. It's not really, I mean, we're still doing the analysis, we're still doing the design, we're still doing the development, we're
Mm-hmm.
still doing Addie. It's just that we're focusing on what people need to do first
Yep.
rather than on what they need to know. And I think that's the big thing is it's hard for people, and it's even hard sometimes for people who do the job to identify what it is that they do. I think that you just have to keep talking.
Yep.
And it's not really that hard. It's just, it makes a lot of sense to provide, to not make people sit through 10 weeks of training when they start a job. How quickly can we get them? One of the things that when we started at Logical Operations, way before Learn Grow, way before anything else, was get their hands on the keyboard as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And I think that that is really what Enable is about. Get people to performance as quickly as possible and don't make them sit through the sage on the stage, standing up in front of the class
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of stuff that they don't, that they can look up later or that they can be introduced to as they need it.
I love that. We overteach. It's been an issue
Mm-hmm.
for forever. So Sue, just wonderful. What's your biggest lesson learned? Can I ask you that? You've had a really remarkable career in this journey over several years, decades. What is your biggest lesson learned for you in all this?
Showing how this can change things, how the 5 moments of need and workflow learning, performance supported digital coach can change the way that you support your performers is much more important than telling them that this works. Actually, doing a pilot, something like that, is a really critical piece of it. I think that we can talk all we want to, but until you actually see it in action, it's really hard for people to grasp.
I love that. And I think it goes for the developer too, right? You kind of have to see
Uh-huh.
this thing work to believe in it, in
Yeah.
doing it. But back to crawl, walk, run, right? The chunk size can be a lot more manageable
Yeah.
than
Yep.
boiling the ocean. So you're just remarkable. I've so admired, you as a person, obviously, but
Yeah.
you and your career and watching you journey through this, and more importantly, watching you guide our clients, our developers, and hundreds, frankly, of IDs through this journey and for the light bulb to come on. Thanks again for doing it yet again here in this podcast and
Yeah.
sharing what you do so well. Thanks so much, friend.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 moments of need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on Twitter using my Twitter handle at BMOSH, as well as our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.